Hey, Cleaning Nation, Mike Campion here with Jackson Pinky Pinkowski, our marketing guy. He is kind of the main go-to point for our community on marketing and for our clients, and has spent millions of dollars on paid ads, and gotten more than millions of dollars to come back on paid ads, which is more important than anyone can, I guess. Anyone's got a couple $1,000,000 can spend a couple million, but getting that plus coming back is big. So today we are going to dive into some secret, hidden, undiscovered lanes where other people aren't. So when I get people that come to us, many say my biggest problem is marketing. And typically they've started with, well, I'll give a little preaching, then we'll get into the subject. They almost always start with the media, right? Is it Angie's List? Is it Facebook? If I ask them, well, who's your client and what's your goal and how many do you need and what problem do you really solve for them at a deep level? They don't have anything. Or even worse, they're paying an agency. I'm paying a guy to do the marketing. It's like, great. How many of your perfect prospects has that agency talked to? And what kind of word tracks does he have that he can communicate they're paying back to them? And it's like they post pictures of dirty carpets and clean carpets and say, call now for a free estimate. So foundation for all this stuff is you got to know exactly who your client is, exactly what pain that you solve for them. And then ideally where they go to solve the pain is what we're going to talk about today. But so many people, almost everybody starts with the end. Where do I go to solve the pain? And it's always Angie sucks, or Facebook sucks, or Yelp sucks, or sometimes it's good, but most of the time people don't. The people that call us are not having success with that. So the big thing I want to talk about is once you're clearing who your client, and this goes a lot more for kind of smaller cities like in LA or like the big markets, you can sometimes do okay just with LSAs, just like the paid traffic will kind of get you by. But, we're recording this end of July, probably released August 2024. Every year, give or take Thanksgiving, all the way through the, first week or so of January, ads get expensive. Every 4 years, there's an election thrown in that, and everybody's spending a bunch of money on. So now not only are people spending for Christmas stuff, but they're also spending for elections. Ads get real expensive. And if that's your sole way of getting, or I shouldn't say ads, but Facebook, paid online traffic gets very expensive. And if that's your sole way to get traffic, you're kind of stuck. So we want to talk about, well, one more thing. A, you can't control it. B, stuff gets expensive. Like I've been doing this for a decade now. I'm sure you remember, Jackson, a decade ago, Facebook ads were like the best deal in the world, man. You could throw $1 out, you get $10 and you don't have to be good at anything. You just it was just undervalued eyeballs. 10 years before that, Google pay-per-click was oh my God, you get a click for 12 cents, a good click. Now at, $12 is a lot closer. So same with Facebook, stuff gets more expensive. So A, things get more expensive. B, you're in a bidding, you don't have control over that. So when other people enter the bidding market that have more money, not a great place to be. And just see, who knows, right? Stuff ebbs and flows. And if you just got one source, it ain't great. And if it's the same source that all of your competitors are using, you can still make money at it, but it really ain't great. The reason I think people do Angie's or Bark is it's easy. You put in your credit card, you'd be like, here's $20 for a lead. They don't ask you any questions about who you want, what you solve, nothing. Just raw lead. Anyone that types in cleaning service, boom, they're going to sell it to you and 2, 3, 4 other people for that same $40, and y'all can fight it out amongst yourselves. So easy, right? They've kind of done a lot of legwork, but the quality ain't great. And, I think they guarantee we'll sell it 4 times. You're going to, 4 people paying for that same lead that might have just not even be great. So high on the easy scale and low on the quality scale, right? Like LSAs, local service ads. I think those are great. They're super easy to put up, not a lot of work, but you can't control. A lot of times there's not that much volume and sometimes the quality ain't great, but it's easy, right? So finding if a particular message on a particular billboard, radio ad, park bench, sign, door hanger, kind of, God forbid, yellow page ad, right? I'm not advocating any of these. I'm just saying, if you can find 1 or 2 or 3 of those that your competitors aren't in, because if you're in any sort of market, your competitors are in local service ads, they're in pay-per-click, they're doing all this crap. You can really build something that no one else can get. So that's the kind of generic general foundation I want to lay. Jackson, give us your specific thoughts, perspectives, experience on, I don't want to say non-traditional. I might change it to formerly traditional. Like for us, for older guys that have been marketing for 20 years, like, oh yeah, this used to be a thing. And now they're kind of, I don't say not in vogue, but don't get a lot of press. That's for goddamn sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, it's crazy. I didn't think of it that way, that it like 10, 20 years ago, this was considered traditional and Facebook was, or like digital was new age. And now it's kind of reversed. Like people think of billboards and signs and things like that as more dinosaur, and Facebook digital is all traditional marketing now. But ultimately, like the best way I like to think about all these different types of channels is it's they all you treat them almost, you treat them like the same way, right? Because like if you think about it, you can spend $500 on Facebook ads. You could also spend $500 on a billboard. Like I don't know how much a billboard costs. I've never bought a billboard before, but you could spend, $500 on a sponsorship at a golf course. That's something I have done before. And it again, it ultimately boils down to where your people are and where they're going to be seeing these types of things. Because I get asked that question a lot. If people ask, like, "Oh, does this sign look good? Is this performing well? Is this something I want to do? Is this something I want to renew?" And ultimately, you look at all these channels the same way. You look at it as, is it in front of the people that I want? Is it giving me, leads? Am I getting a return on that investment, right? Because when you look at Facebook ads, you say, okay, I spent $500, I got 20 leads. This is how much my leads cost. This is how many customers I got off of that. And then for some reason, it seems like people take that, they forget about that when they do something that isn't digital. They forget about that when they do signs or billboards or anything. And it's like, okay, I spent $500 on this billboard. Is this good or bad? And it's like, well, how many people called you and said, oh, I saw your billboard? It's like, oh, well, I got 30. It's like, okay, well, that's great. How many customers did you get off that? Oh, I got X. I got 10. It's like, okay, awesome. To me, that sounds like a really good thing. And it's a no-brainer to keep going. And I think that's where people get lost with this. For whatever reason, they see it as less tangible than something. And maybe that's just because these digital platforms actually report back a number to you, and the billboards don't report a number back to you. You just spend the money, and you're responsible for understanding what ends up coming through. But I think ultimately, like it's not my place or anybody's place to tell you if it's good or bad for you to do. It's ultimately going to be your choice and your understanding of where your customers see it, right? If you're a commercial cleaning company and you want to do a billboard, but you want to do it on a rural highway, well, maybe that doesn't make sense. Or do you know for a fact that all your perfect prospects take that road on the way into work? It's like, well, if that's the case, then that's probably a pretty good thing, because then they'd see it all the time. But if they don't, or for whatever reason you're just saying, oh, I can get this billboard for cheap, then that doesn't work. So moral of my story is, if your prospects, if your people, residential, commercial, are going to see this, whatever it is, listen to it, hear it, read it, sit on it, if it's a bus stop, then that is a worthy avenue of exploring. That helps, again, diversify you away from solely digital on Facebook, Google, Angie's, LSAs, whatever it is.
Hey, Clean Nation, Mike Campion here. One of my least favorite things about these podcasts are we found that people love the show and they love the information, but when I talk to you guys in person, stuff doesn't get done. People love the podcast, but they don't take any action. If you'd like to actually implement this and get this done in your world, we have a whole team of people that do exactly that. If you go to growmycleaningcompany.com/talk, you can book a time with either myself personally or one of our teammates to at least help you come up with a plan to actually implement and change your life. So if you want to go from getting these good ideas in your head to getting them in your life, just book a free call with myself or my team, growmycleaningcompany.com/talk, and we can go from this one-to-many format to one-to-one and really get you some results. Excited to talk. Jackson said so many good things. So it's funny. I think I've got 25 years on you, give or take. And
we do share the same birthday, though.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Same born on the same day. Just I was a grown married man, maybe with a kid. Jackson was born, but he was born on the same day I was, just 1 or 2 years off. So yeah, I remember when you're talking old school, like when Yellow Pages was a website, like of course you have Yellow Pages, like you have to have a Yellow Page. And yeah, and then Google comes up, and we're so glad because we hated the Yellow Pages because they're so expensive. And now it's like yellow. What is that? I mean, there are literally people on this broadcast that are going, I don't know what a Yellow Pages is. Google that crap. It's shocking. If you're if you're young and have not used one. So the difference is platforms change and they'll continue to change. Like Facebook's been pretty hot for a good decade or so now. Like websites, that used to be first of all, there's no such thing as a website. Then it was this crazy, like, yeah, I guess if you're a government agency or and then it was like, whoa, the big, like, you've got a website, that's a big gosh darn deal. And then it was like, yeah, of course you have a website. And now it's like, why would I go to the website? I'll just see how many Instagram followers you have. Like and so anyway, the problem, I shouldn't say the problem. A lot of people chase a buck today. Like on YouTube, if I have a yellow letter with a black background and this size font, those are getting traction. And for 2.5 months, they will be, or maybe 6 months, God willing. And then something else will change. And then something else will change. And then something else will change. So I always love starting with the philosophy of what's the goal here? And again, the message is the important part, right? So if I got the wrong message, put it wherever you want, it's going to work, right? If the call to action is not compelling to your perfect prospect, you can waste your money in any platform you like, right? So start with the message, start with the philosophy of, I understand what my customer is and what words I can say to them that will make them take the action that I want or induce them to take the action that I want. And Facebook's a great place to test that, right? It used to be you'd have to put a Yellow Page ad you're stuck with it for a year, or you send out a direct mail campaign, might cost thousands of dollars and take months to figure out if it's any good. Facebook, you can test 5 different headlines in a week and come up with the one that works. So Facebook, and again, I'm not saying you shouldn't use Facebook or any digital marketing, and they're great for testing, but you really want to make sure you've got a locked message and call to action, right? Here's the thing that I'm speaking and a call to action that people respond to. And once that's good, now you can take that show on the road, right? So I don't know that I would use a billboard or a sign on a golf course or, anything that's kind of permanent, like you have to spend money now, or a radio ad that runs for months or you have to commit, without at least testing it. So once it works good on Facebook, the call to action might be modified a little bit. Like if you're on Facebook, it's probably going to be click here. If it's on a radio ad, it's probably going to be call this number. But the offer, I guess, is probably a better way to go. Once that's proven, it'll work anywhere. And the big thing, and I think Jackson touched on it, is data, right? Facebook, in my humble opinion, gives too much information. I think they try and bury you in useless data that makes them feel good. It makes you feel good about wasting a bunch of money. Like you got 1 billion impressions, but no. And in there, if you know what you're doing, you can find out what kind of how many people actually bought my god darn thing and how much ROI. You can do it, but it's obscured. When it comes to something simple like a billboard or a radio ad, it's typically you can have a QR code that's going to go to a landing page. You can have an email, which I wouldn't recommend. You can have a phone. That's about it. And all those are eminently trackable. So I think the big thing is, again, it's harder to test and a little more risky to test the magazine ad because, I haven't done it before. But if you put a phone number in there, it doesn't take much work to just be like, I'll buy a number just for this. Or even, numbers are $0 to $1 a month. Like they're very inexpensive. It doesn't take much extra to track. So I think, again, Facebook, Angie's, a lot of these things make it easy. So we kind of stick there, but that's where the crowds are. And, you walk a golf course and there's 18 holes and maybe there's 18 advertising, whatever, a magazine or whatever. There's probably your competitors probably aren't there, but that's the magic. As good as I like scalable digital stuff, and we do a ton of it. If my customers, my perfect prospects are there, but my competitors aren't, that's a win. So last thing I'll say, and then I'll let Jackson finish it any way he sees fit, is start with the little money and then scale. Right. I think a lot of people go all in on something because they get sold and just spend a bunch. Like we just had a client ask, I forget what it was a magazine or something that I was into, and like, oh no, it's a 6-month commitment and it's this many thousands of dollars. I'm like, no, I'm not into that. Like run it cheap, see if it works. And then once it does, then I'm into scaling. So I think a lot of times people underspend with nothing because they don't want to test it, or they overspend with a large commitment, and it's just a big swing. And sometimes you connect and that's great, and sometimes you don't. But I'm like, I'll test on a couple $100, and if I get an ROI, I'll test with a couple hundred more. And if I've spent 1,000, I've got a solid ROI, or I've tweaked the message, or I've tweaked the size, the color, whatever the case may be, and then I've got ROI, and now we can scale. So I just want to encourage you guys, data. If the first time you run an ad for anything, don't think you're going to make money on it. Think you're just going to collect data. And the goal is, and that's why I love magazines, right? If you put a magazine ad out, like Facebook's, the online stuff burns out, right? You can make a Instagram reel and you get 20,000 likes and 800 shares and a bunch of traffic, and then it's gone. And I'm not saying there's no value to that. They're like, you can build, social media's got its place. But if you get an ad that works with direct mail or on a billboard or on a magazine, the chances you can just run that ad for years without any changes whatsoever, pretty high. Chance that you can run a Facebook ad or a Google ad without change for years, virtually zero. So that's I feel like, again, I'm getting to preaching, but I really want to desperately see you guys. I think you guys make it much too hard to get clients in this space. Like, there's spaces where it's harder. Cleaning ain't one of them. Your competitors are not sophisticated typically. Jackson, anything to add?
No, just to reiterate how alternative channels are important. I think I read something that like direct mail is up like 120% this month or this year. And that goes for like all industries across the board. So even companies that sell online and sell like clothing online, they're doing direct mails. And they do, their individualized offers and things like that. So there's a reason these things work and people do them. And there's a reason you guys should explore them and see if you can get in front of the right people with whatever it may be.
Yeah, love it. And again, direct mail. There are many stories of one direct mail piece that companies have run for decades, unchanged, same offer. You could have a big enough list, right? So for a local company, you might burn out a little faster, but that's okay. You just, depending on if you've got, if you're in, Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, with 5 million people in the greater Phoenix area, you can run that same ad forever. If you're in a town with 100,000 people, maybe you run it for a month and then you take a month off, but you can run it for a decade. It's just how much ROI. So try some new stuff. The big thing is test cheap, collect data. And then when you find something's got a positive ROI, that's a huge competitive advantage, right? If and when you go to sell that company and you're like, we do Facebook ads, there's something to having that tested out, scalable. But if you're like, we've got 6 different lead sources and we spend X, $3,000 a month on marketing, and we get somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000 a month in recurring revenue with our average lifetime value of 20 times the first month, that's something you can sell. So worth the investment. Just make sure you test cheap, track your data, and if you want more help and you're like, this has been helpful, but I need a little more in depth, feel free to reach out at us, growmycleaningcompany.com. You can even email me, Mike at growmycleaningcompany.com. Let us know how we can help. If you are not getting the results that you want, do something different. See you soon. Hey, Cleaning Nation, if you dug the content you just got, we don't do any ads and I don't sell anything on this podcast, but if you would just subscribe, rate, and review, it would be huge and I'd be so appreciative. Not only is it going to help me, but you'll help other owners of cleaning companies across the world work less, make more, and get profitable. So if you appreciate the value we give, again, subscribe, rate, and review. It would mean the world to me. I'd really appreciate it. And we sure appreciate your time and attention.